But what about like the Milton influence? There's a Bridges references that in the introduction on page 30. We're just like, I mean, you can definitely tell that there's like this Milton. He was obsessed with Milton, particularly in the early part.
Yeah, when he was under the Miltonic influence.
Which I guess everyone was like. I guess yeah, the stuff in this uh, is what I would say.
Between the,
What?
so it was happening between the early spring of 1819, while he was still working on Hyperion, and then when he, hang on,
Well, just you can see it. Like
yeah,
even
that was like when he wrote his odes too. You see a lot of that apparently when he wrote his odes. I mean, you also see it like really obviously when he writes like about the lock of Milton's hair,
right.
you know. And that wasn't that. That was pretty, isn't that pretty early on?
Yeah, and then what I think is interesting and what I didn't notice when I was younger and like barely paying attention to this as I was reading through anthologies and stuff and survey courses was yeah, of course these guys were influenced by mostly. I mean, you could see the big ones were yeah Milton and Shakespeare. They all wanted to be either Milton or Shakespeare because those were the two that have this colossal kind of rippling effect in literature,
Yeah, there was a
especially.
lot of Wordsworth in there too, I think. Um,
I just mean especially at
and
this time, like
yeah,
they were the
yeah.
rock stars still. I mean, we still consider Shakespeare some type of rock star in some regard, but I mean, think back 200 years ago. I mean, yeah, this was
Yeah, well, they were all writing sonnets too,
right.
like sonnet after sonnet after sonnet. And like they weren't like amazing. You
No,
know,
they weren't.
they still weren't Shakespeare sonnets.
Right. But yeah, you could definitely see that. So I kind of was like, all right, yeah, Milton influence, I can go with that. Bridges also calls his Ode to Autumn his masterpiece.
Yeah. I was feeling kind of bored around there.
The yeah, I will say Ode to Autumn. I think was probably one of the best when you think of his most famous ones. Ode on a Grecian urn, and then Ode to a Nightingale. Right, those are like the most famous. I'm not a huge fan of those, but they're the big canonical odes of his that you read in all the
Yeah, there
Nortons.
were others that were really fun, you know,
Right.
like and felt a little bit like bitchy and that I enjoyed, like pensive they sit and roll their languid eyes.
And then yeah, the first couple poems, I mean, we get references right away. So I mean, not only does it show us it's like a young writer, but just like he's doing this kind of call and answer thing, and he's kind of writing to other writers and kind of interacting with them. Like right away, we get these kind of a sonnet to Lord Byron,
Mm-hmm.
fill for me a brimming bowl, all
Yeah,
this kind of
yeah. It's a lot to Byron. There's a lot that's just straight up addressed to people,
which
whether they're dead or living.
yeah,
There's a good bit of Spencer in the beginning.
yeah, Chatterton, all
Chatterton was a huge, huge thing, which like I just don't get, but I guess that was like, you know, the image of like the suffering artist or whatever. That was like so sexy.
his emo boys.
Yeah. Emo boys.
Skinny, tiny little sickly emo boys writing about their passions.
Yeah. He was gonna be a doctor.
That's right. He went to med school, but like, and then you notice, like, I kept noticing the Milton references were heavy as shit. So clearly, specifically, I would think Paradise Lost, which is obviously Milton's biggest thing,
Yeah.
the one that we still have to be, forced graduate students to read and all that. It's like, but he was so influenced by that, which makes sense because when you think of like, okay, who is writing this type of stuff before, people that he would look up to, the same way, you look up to our writers now, more contemporary stuff. Yeah, of course, Milton was the big one because it was only what, like 150 years ago that like
Yeah.
Milton produced this huge work that everybody praised, like uh, that people still puzzle over, write entire books over. So yeah, I mean, you could obviously see that, and also see like you could tell that there's a confidence in Keats, perhaps an unearned confidence, even in his early stuff, where he kind of keeps referring to himself as like a bard in the vein of Shakespeare, in this kind of
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah,
Which also just seems really like true of poets to me. Like that's what I mean. I think that all of this stuff like is going to be attractive to poets because it kind of also plays into whatever hidden senses of grandeur they may have.
right, or not so hidden.
In many cases, not so hidden. I mean, certainly none of us was good at hiding it when we were like first getting into it.